Taliban strikes back. It's SkyWatchTV News for Thursday, October 1st, 2015. I'm Derek Gilbert. Kunduz, a key city in northern Afghanistan, was mostly overrun by the Taliban earlier this week in an attack that took defenders there by surprise. It's the group's biggest military success since 2001. A key strategic point in the city, the fortress of Bala Hissar, fell to the Taliban yesterday in spite of counterattacks by government forces backed by NATO airstrikes. The airport, the only position still being held by government forces. U.S. Special Forces troops have been dispatched to that airport to help government troops there try to recapture the city. Taking one of Afghanistan's richest and most strategically placed cities is a major propaganda coup for the new Taliban leader Mullah Mansour, who's been facing competition in other parts of the country from the Islamic State. And there are reports today of Taliban attacks elsewhere in Afghanistan, apparently trying to stretch government forces and draw them away from Kunduz. Speaking of the Islamic State, a gruesome story about the group has resurfaced. Earlier this year, the IS was accused of financing its operations by harvesting and selling organs from prisoners. Now, a man claiming to be an escaped prisoner from the IS has turned up in England, quoted by the Daily Mail this week, accusing the Islamic State of harvesting kidneys and corneas from captured prisoners and using healthy captives as a living blood bank for injured Islamic State fighters. In February, Iraq's minister to the United Nations accused the Islamic State of setting up an organ harvesting and black market trafficking ring centered in Mosul in northern Iraq, using the money raised to buy weapons and supplies. There's no independent confirmation of that accusation, and we do need to remember that a big part of war is the battle for public opinion. I should also point out that the government of China, it's been documented, does in fact harvest organs from political prisoners to raise money. Russia gets busy in Syria, launching its first airstrikes there, presumably against the Islamic State. But the location of the strike indicates that Russia plans to help the government of Bashar al-Assad in the whole war effort, retaking the entire country, not just defending the stronghold of the government along the Mediterranean coast. The upper house of parliament in Moscow voted to approve military intervention there earlier this week. But a Kremlin spokesman did say the use of ground troops has been ruled out. However, Debka File, a news website in Tel Aviv with contacts inside Israeli military and intelligence circles, said that Russian Marines have, in fact, taken part in some fighting. And the United States has suspended part of its program to train and equip Syrian rebels for the fight against the government of Bashar al-Assad. The $500 million program was put on hold after 75 brand new recruits, trainees, crossed the border from Turkey last week and immediately handed their weapons over to al-Qaeda's affiliate in Syria, the al-Nusra Front. The program was sold to Congress with the idea that 5,000 soldiers could be trained and equipped by the end of this year. At last count, as of this week, the program still about 4,996 soldiers short of its goal. But the Pentagon, apparently ever the optimist, has requested another $600 million for this program in the 2016 budget. And you just have to wonder, if and when the Psalm 83 and Ezekiel 38 wars come to pass, how many of the soldiers fighting to take Jerusalem away from Israel will be carrying weapons paid for by American taxpayers? Now, a few stories to report on that aren't quite what they seem. From Texas, we look at the Clock Boy conspiracy. You've heard this story. 14-year-old boy in Irving, Texas, a couple of weeks ago, arrested by the police there for bringing a homemade digital clock to school in a briefcase to show his engineering teacher. It was reported by the media as a clear case of Islamophobia. He was invited to the White House by President Obama, who tweeted out, "Cool clock, kid." Facebook and MIT have both said they want Ahmed to come there, work with them. The boy and his family met with Muslim leaders at the United Nations last week, met New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio on Monday, and will travel to Saudi Arabia to meet leaders there in the near future. But when you look closely at this story, it's not quite what it appears. The so-called homemade clock turns out to be a Radio Shack digital alarm clock from the mid-1980s that was just disassembled and then stuffed into a locking pencil case, looking for all the world like a homemade well, at least a television writer's idea of what a homemade bomb would look like. His trouble apparently resulted from his unwillingness to cooperate with police when they came and asked him questions. A retired middle school teacher in Irving, Texas, describes Ahmed as one of those boys that will either grow up to be a CEO or the head of a gang. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Ahmed's father, Mohammed El Hassan Mohammed, has been a publicity-seeking Muslim activist in recent years. The native of Sudan accepted an invitation by Florida pastor Terry Jones to debate the Quran. Remember Terry Jones? He's the guy who very publicly burned a copy of the Quran a few years back. He also debated Robert Spencer, publisher of the website jihadwatch.org. He's declared himself a candidate for president of Sudan twice. And of course, as soon as the incident broke, he brought in the Council on American Islamic Relations, a group that's been linked to the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas. He accused Irving police officers of torturing Ahmed during questioning. But the mayor of Irving, Texas, Beth Van Dyne, says the family has refused to meet with the school district or city officials to clear the air. The family refuses to sign a release so that police records of the incident can be made public, presumably because they'd exonerate the police. And curiously enough, Mayor Van Dyne says that the White House never contacted the city of Irving to confirm details of the story before inviting Ahmed to the White House. And, oh, by the way, the White House tweeted its invitation to Ahmed before pictures of the clock were ever made public. From Japan, a new report about the Fukushima nuclear power plant says that it may have suffered a total meltdown. Reactor number 2 at the Daiichi plant, which was damaged by that catastrophic earthquake and tsunami in 2011, apparently has very little nuclear fuel still left inside the reactor. And it appears that this tragedy, this disaster, could have been prevented. A report from the University of Southern California says one of the main causes of the disaster was a decision years ago by the Tokyo Electric Power Company to place backup generators in low-lying areas of the plant. Low-lying areas that were immediately flooded when the tsunami hit, knocking the backup generators offline, which took the cooling system offline, which led to the plant overheating and the meltdown in reactor number 2. And an interesting story in the wake of Pope Francis' historic visit to the United States. It appears that he may have gotten the job because of a palace coup inside the Vatican. A new biography published this week by Cardinal Godfried Daniels, Archbishop Emeritus of Brussels, Belgium, says that Daniels was part of a secret group of liberal cardinals that met for years in the town of St. Gallen in Switzerland. The so-called St. Gallen group was headed by Cardinal Jorge Bergoglio, and it was opposed to Pope Benedict XVI, who they considered far too conservative. So the group, which Daniels calls a mafia club in this biography, wanted to radically reform the Roman Catholic Church and work behind the scenes to get Cardinal Bergoglio elected pope, which they did, Pope Francis. And there's some evidence that the struggle between progressives and conservatives inside the Vatican is ongoing. Pope Francis demoted conservative Cardinal Raymond Burke, former head of the Archdiocese of St. Louis, Missouri, here in the U.S. Last November, Cardinal Burke had been the head of the Vatican's Supreme Court. And Burke quoted in a recent article, early September, warning Pope Francis that he does not have the power to change teachings or doctrine. And of course, this was just after Pope Francis had changed teachings and doctrine on the Catholic procedure for marriage annulment. Now, rumors have been circulating for years around a liberal conspiracy that opposed Pope Benedict. This biography confirms it. The interesting thing in all of this, of course, is that Tom Horn and Chris Putnam predicted the resignation of Pope Benedict a year before it happened. We wrapped up our series of programs for National Preparedness Month last night on the Christian Television Network. Carl Gallups was our guest on SkyWatch TV, talking about his book, Be Thou Prepared, and the biblical basis for preparedness. If you missed the program last night, you can see it this week in our official YouTube channel. And a link to that YouTube channel is posted at our website, skywatchtv.com, big red button. You can also watch it on demand, along with these daily updates, at your convenience on the SkyWatch TV Roku channel. If you have one of the Roku set-top boxes, which make TV watching awfully convenient, you can subscribe to the SkyWatch TV channel at the Roku Channel Store. Go online, log on to your account, search the channel store for the SkyWatch TV channel. We've got complete instructions on how you can do that at skywatchtv.com/Roku. Later this month, an opportunity at a gathering in Idaho to hear from some speakers about what you can expect in 2016. It's the 10th Annual Strategic Perspectives Conference, featuring Tom Horn, Gary Stearman, our good friend from Prophecy Watchers, as well as future guests on SkyWatch TV, Joel Richardson, the best-selling author, and Colonel Bob McGinnis, Pentagon strategist and author of the forthcoming book, Never Submit. The Strategic Perspectives Conference is put on by Chuck Missler's Koinonia Institute, October 23rd through the 25th at the Coeur d'Alene Resort in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I will be there conducting interviews and hope to see you there. If you need more information or want to register, log on to koinoniainstitute.org. And in just a couple of weeks, registration opens for the 2016 Rocky Mountain International Prophecy Conference in Colorado Springs, July 15th through the 17th there. We're limiting it to 1,000 attendees. It's good to get together with folks, but we want to keep it manageable. So make sure you register quickly. Registration opens October 13th. More information and registration at prophecywatchers.com. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to dgilbert@skywatchtv.com. And tomorrow, Sci Friday, as my best friend and the smartest person I know, my wife, Sharon K. Gilbert, joins us, and we'll discuss the top scientific stories of the week from a Christian perspective. Until then, thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV.